Oh, welcome back, and these are our citrus plants, lemon trees. We've got 4 of them in pots, and you may remember or have watched the videos that we've done around the care of these during the summer months, and particularly looking out for scale insects and feeding these and watering them on a regular basis to encourage them into flower and fruit. Now, these little trees have been in this conservatory, which is an unheated south-facing conservatory, since the end of October, and they're now 2 to 3 months into their winterization. We keep them in a semi-dormant state. Usually what happens is when we first bring them in, they have a little spurt of growth and flower, and then after that very little happens for about 2 or 3 months until the daylight hours start to increase. You'll see here some embryonic small lemons, which are going to be next year's fruit. You want to try and keep these in good condition if you can, and that can be a problem in a conservatory where the airflow and humidity can be a problem. Just let me show you one that's rotted off. Here's an example of what you want to try and prevent. This is one where the plant's been allowed either to dry out too much or the humidity around it has got too high and fungus has got in, and you'll see we're going to lose that spur. Best thing to do with that now is to cut it back to a healthy looking plant. I'll probably take this right out to here, cut it right back. These plants have had quite a good haircut when we did bring them in. 2 reasons for doing that. One, we're a bit pushed for space in this conservatory, and the other is if you leave too much growth on this, then you have more of a struggle to keep the watering just right. Now, the other thing we've been asked about is leaf drop. It's quite normal for these to drop leaves seasonally. It tends to be more apparent when you bring them in and they have a sudden change in the environment that you're keeping them in. We're also keeping these a little on the dry side, so these leaves aren't as turgid as they would normally be. The reasons for that are to try and prevent the moulds and the dieback and rot that we've shown in an unvented conservatory, where you're trying to get the balance of moisture and airflow but maintain the temperatures over winter to prevent them from getting frosted. But also because you are keeping the compost on the dry side again. Now, finding the balance for that is quite a tricky one. We've got a little trick here which has just occurred naturally but is quite useful, and that's these little plants that seed themselves from having these plant pots in a conservatory over winter. And I can tell if there's enough moisture in this soil to keep those looking healthy. As soon as they start looking a little bit dehydrated, that's a good sign to come in here and water them. You could use a hydrometer or an indicator, but they work just as well. The compost is on the dry side. Just look, I can pick this up. The top inch or so is really quite dry. If I dig down a little bit more, start to expose some root, I can just feel some moisture in there, but it's more dry than wet, and you certainly don't want to leave these in any waterlogged soil at all. Got to let the roots healthily have a little bit of air over this time, and that will keep these in peak condition and stop any rot developing or dieback in the roots. Do keep an eye out for scale insects even over winter. They don't like the cold any more than the lemon trees, but look, we've still got some mature adults on here. You can see on this damaged leaf there's a scale insect which you need to remove and dispose of, and do go over them periodically. You won't have the large numbers that you can get in the early spring. Do keep an eye out for any stickiness occurring on these leaves. It's a sure sign indicator that the scale insects are getting out of hand. And the stickiness tends to attract the black mold in a conservatory, so these leaves go black and quite horrible. That can all be removed just with a clean cloth and some warm detergent soaked water. But you do need to deal with the scale insects and keep checking them over and picking those off even over the winter period. To do so, you're going to get these plants in better condition at the beginning of spring. And when we start to see longer daylight hours, that's when you start increasing the watering with these and then introduce some feeds in with the water. We're not giving these any liquid feed or nutrition at this time of year. We don't really want to start them into growth too early. That would be damaged by early frosts in southern England, and we really want to get these growing away healthily just before we're going to put them out, so that that healthy growth and flower bud continues and gets pollinated and produces a good crop of lemons next season. This little clump is of interest. There are 2 remaining lemons which are ripe, ready for use now from last season. One lemon which is still developing, this one, which will continue to develop and will be ripe probably towards the end of next summer. And then we've already shown you these tiny little embryonic buds which have just been pollinated and are forming. These again will grow on and either ripen end of next season or beginning of the following. So you have a complete succession of baby lemons, ripe lemons and lemon flower bud coming on at any one time. You can see here the buds with the flowers just rearing to go this year, but again, by reducing the watering you can just hold those back with the cold conditions, that they don't start growing away too early. So I hope that's given you a little taster of what you should be doing with your lemon plants to keep them ticking over winter and keeping them in a good condition to getting a good crop of lemons the following summer season. So good luck with yours.